I'm Julie Stauch, and in honor of the movie Rogue One coming out, I am going rogue in how I do my presentation today. So, hang with me.
Thank you. Do you need help?
So, here's what I'm going to do. I have been listening to, as all the others have, been listening to what needs to happen and for the party and concerns people have. And so I'm going to share with you my plan. I'm going to break it down one by one. And if we don't get to your question today, I really hope you'll call me or email me and we can get your question answered, okay? So with that, I'm going to go to the flip chart. I think we've been working on some poor assumptions. One of those poor assumptions is the IDP is a campaign. It's not a campaign, it's the foundation for campaigns. Another one is that the top of the ticket carries the bottom of the ticket. I don't think that's true. I think our success comes from the bottom up, and we have a number of elections where those kind of results are apparent to us. And then the third is that people are listening to us. I don't think they're listening to us, and I think we really have to address that across the state. Just remember, I went rogue with a flip chart. That's kind of like a little off the record, or off the whack. So the role of the IDP is to build the base, to recruit and develop leaders, and to cultivate resources. That's money, data, events, and our identity. So what's the difference between the IDP and a campaign? To me, the difference is the Iowa Democratic Party is about empowerment, and campaigns are about control. And I've managed campaigns, and there's a reason they're about control, but the party is about empowering and building and bringing in a base. Sort of the difference between talking with people or talking at people. So empowerment, there are three things I'm recommending. This is my ta-da moment here, okay? So, leadership recruiters rather than staff. If you're from one of the outlying counties, I lived for 11 years up in Mason City. Sending in staff is helpful, but there's always sort of a friction. And I think we need to recruit some people who will be our leadership recruiters from within target areas. Then I think we need to have a 2017 canvas. And this canvas needs to be an open canvas. I'll talk about that in a second. And we'll use that to inform our message development. And then we really need to relook at our events and increase the power of our events. So leadership recruiters. Basically, I am thinking that we would have 18 people to start with, who would be leaders from within the communities. These folks will have an area of 2 to 3 Senate districts, and their responsibilities would be, number one, working with the county parties to problem solve. Number two, to identify and cultivate leaders who would either be active in the local community or active as candidates. And then lastly, to build community connections through events and activities, purposeful activities. The 2017 canvas. I believe that we desperately need this canvas. We have done this kind of thing before. It needs to be more open-ended, and so that we create a feedback loop with voters, where we actually are talking to voters about, and basically it could be like, hi, I'm Julie, I'm with the Iowa Democratic Party. We didn't do so well this last election, and we decided we want to hear from you. And tell us what you're concerned about, tell us what you want to see happen from your government here in Iowa. And find out what they have to say, and use that to then inform focus groups, the whole polling, the whole other messaging process. The difference between doing that and a regular focus group or polling is that you have with focus groups, I've run campaigns, and what you do is you look at your candidate, you look at your district, and you form your questions based upon the need of what you need to test based on that candidate, rather than what just a broad-based message development. And then it would be, that information from that canvas would be available to all campaigns to know about for their area. Purposeful events. These would be about candidate development. We'd have a training and development sort of format and provide information for candidates, but also we would do this for our leaders, because I think we have other kinds of leadership roles that are just not getting the help they need. We would also engage our progressive allies. We have so many great progressive allies, and we just don't get them engaged with our Democratic Party membership. And there's a symbiosis or whatever, relationship that will help both them and us. And so I would like to see us put a schedule together to get people out, the organizations out and activated. And then finally, for our events, I recommend that we focus on our rising stars. And that could work anywhere. So that what we're doing is we're looking at who's coming in, who's contributing. And the thing I like about the Rising Stars idea is it's not age specific. I worked with some great people who were newly retired in this last election cycle, and they volunteered where I live, and that made a huge difference. And they were rising stars, so I think we can celebrate everybody's success. We could do that at the county level, we could do that at the district level, and we could do that at the state level, and just sort of start honoring the people who are making things happen out there. The last is why me. I am an experienced activist, 7 years in Mason City. I'm a winning congressional campaign manager. I understand nonprofit, I've worked as a nonprofit executive, and I understand how the foundational organization like the party can function. And I'm experienced in change management, which is what I do with my clients. And right now, where the party is right now, I feel like there's a need for me that there hasn't been for a while. And, so I'm here because I want you guys to listen to me. So with that, I will now listen to your questions and answer them. Thank you.
Hi, Julie. The first question over here, this is coming from the conference call system.
Okay.
It's Bernard Clayton speaking on behalf of the IDP Black Caucus.
Okay.
He would like to know who you would support for second and third vice chair.
I don't get to vote. I honestly haven't, I've been so overwhelmed with this, I don't even know exactly who's running. But, I will, whoever gets it, I will be delighted to work with them. I'm sorry I can't answer the question better than that.
Do you want a second and third vice chair? What's your ideas on how many vice chairs we have?
Okay, so someone suggested that I look at it, what kind of vice chairs do we need? I mean, that's the Central Committee's decision. What do you want? And whatever you want, I'll work with them. And I'll work with that structure.
Julie,
Yes.
what ideas have you gleaned from your opponents that you think are worthy of implementation if you are the chair?
I've heard, I like a couple of the ideas, well, we haven't heard Kim's yet, but about the fundraising approach she's talking about, I thought that made some sense. Everybody basically has good ideas. I just can't pull them all up now because you put me on the spot, Carl. I'm sorry. I'll think of a minute.
Hi, I'm Colleen Caldwell from the Rural Caucus.
Yes.
You talked a bit about party building throughout the state. I was wondering if you have different strategies in mind as far as urban and rural areas.
Well, I think my main, the question was, do I have different strategies for urban versus rural areas? And my main thrust is I believe we need to pull people who are already living in the area for those leadership roles, and I think that they need to be, because they're already invested in the community, and I think that works better than sending a staffer in to do the work. So that is a place that I think we need people from the community area to be engaged. It seems like there was another part of your question though. Did I miss a part of it? Just yell it.
Just the contrast, if you think there's different
Oh, the contrast, yes, thank you. The contrast between urban and rural. Well, yeah, I mean, each area has its own culture. So you can even take different rural counties and rural communities and you'll get a different response out there. So I really think you have to look at what works where they are. I mean, you can go into parts of Des Moines and you wouldn't want to use the same tactics in one part of Des Moines than you would in another part, in Polk County, I mean. Yes?
Julie, David Manson, Butler County.
Yeah, hi, David.
You have worked in change management.
Yes.
And this is probably a stupid question, but I don't know what that is. And how does that help you in reorganizing and revitalizing the Democratic Party?
Change management is a process that came out of engineering when they were and IT in particular, where they were changing systems and they developed certain processes to follow. It has now evolved to be much more than that, and they now look at the human element of change management and how people embrace concepts of change and whether or not they engage in them. And so it's very important to be aware of that, the way the process flows. And so the simple one is, the one that I follow is called the Prosky system, and they have a checklist you follow, which is, first of all, you have to do awareness. Then you have to make sure that people desire the change, because if people don't want change, it'll die right there. Which is part of why I did all those interviews ahead, because if this organization wasn't ready to look at change, then there was no need for me to come here and spend my Saturday in a snowstorm here. And so then the next step is knowledge, and then the next step is ability, and then the last step is recognition. And I've tried actually in this cursory overview to build all of those into this so that there's at least some foundational elements in it. So even if I'm not the person who becomes the chair, I do hope they'll sit down and talk with me about what could be possible, although I do think I'm the best person to be the chair. So, yes. Holly.
Okay, sorry, it takes a little while for this to come on. Holly Herbert, I'm a member of the 3rd District, and this was a question that was submitted to me by another person in the 3rd Congressional District, and his question is the Iowa Democratic Party too focused on identity politics?
So the question was, is the Iowa Democratic Party too focused on identity politics? You know, it's really easy for the Republicans. Think of a pie in your mind. I can't do that with my hands right now, but think of a pie, and the Republican Party is a very small slice of that pie, and it's a very homogenous piece of pie. And then we're the rest, as it stands right now, in terms of, you know, active and viable political parties. And I say that respectfully. I know there are many other political parties. So it's really easy to look at them and say, why can't we be like that? Well, we can't, because we actually like everybody to come in and be a part of what we're doing. And that adds complexity. And if we do not address that complexity, then we are falling short of achieving our goal of how we build our coalition. We are coalition politics. We are not, you know, a small narrow group. And so in the quest to have coalition politics, we have to recognize all of our coalitions. So I think there's a place for both, is the answer. Yes, anybody else?
I do.
Yes? Hootie, what do you got?
Many young voters were energized during the primaries, Pudasok, Vice Chair of Asian and Pacific Islander Caucus. Many young voters were energized during the primaries, but didn't remain after. How do we retain these voters and appeal to them in future elections?
It's always a challenge, And I think it's by finding a role for them. And that's where I like this idea of why I like the leadership recruiter idea, because we would then have 18 people across the state in targeted regions really looking at who's there, who wants to be active, and how can we utilize them well. So I'm going to be putting out more info on this between now and January, and I hope you'll all read it, and I'll try to make it semi-interesting and follow through. Holly has her hand up.
Last question.
Last question.
Yale, Holly. It's out of the roof, it's Yale.
I'll restate it.
Okay. How much money does the IDP charity
Okay. Holly Herbert, 3rd District. This is another submitted question. How much money does the IDP chair need to raise in 2017 for us to be competitive?
I have not looked at, it's going to depend on what the plan is that comes together, but as I understand it, for a 2-year cycle, the cost can be anywhere from 10 to 13,000, 13 not thousand, sorry. 10 to 13, yeah, I think that is right. No, it's not good. Melissa, what's the, sorry. It depends on the cycle, but I think it's more like somewhere above like 5 million. Can somebody give me a head nod on that? Who knows the numbers lately? No, you can't. I think it's got to be a lot more than that, but I'm just making a guess. It depends on what you added in the programs. You know, and I'm at Stauch. Thank you all very much.